I want to welcome everyone to this meeting, this August meeting of the Greater Houston Aquarium Club. I'm Roy. Let's see, we've got a whole bunch of admins. Usually they're in the shirts here, but Leslie and Chris, Kyle, Sasha, who else? We've got Alan and David. Jamie's around somewhere. There's Jackson in the back. Yeah, if you guys got any questions, jump in. Feel free to ask. Hit up one of these admins. They're always happy to kind of help out. We're all in it for the love of the hobby. We want to make sure to thank Fish Gallery for hosting us. Hopefully you guys, if this is your first time, look around. It's a fun, big, huge store. Today's lecture will be on South American Dwarf Cichlids. Dwarves is one of those, it's a easy way to kind of classify things, but what is a dwarf? I kind of looked at it as about 6 inches or less. There's such a wide range. Naturally, when we think of dwarves, we think of kind of the Microgeophagus. That's the one that originally, kind of pops in everybody's head. Everybody knows a ram. If you guys have actually looked up the scientific name, it's M-I-K-R-O instead of M-I-C-R-O, which would be the Latin name. It would have been kind of Latinized. The M-I-K-R-O was actually some German dudes back in the 80s that said, these fish shouldn't be in with Geophagus, and they're definitely not Apistogrammas. So you know what? I'm going to actually say that it would probably be smart to put these into their own group, but he spoke German. So it was M-I-K-R-O. If you ever wonder why, that's why. He was the first dude that actually said that, and from that point on, everybody went, dude, that's a really good idea. We should do that. And that's how those Germans is messing up the name for it. Yeah, apparently he didn't think far enough ahead to go, wait a minute, I should probably put that in the Latin instead of the German. So that's how it ended up with the German name. There are 2 species inside of that genus. We've got the Ram cichlid. A lot of times you'll see them and you'll go, I want that German blue ram. Believe it or not, they're not found in Germany. You will never find one seining the creeks in Germany. Seining the Rhine, you will not come across that elusive German blue ram. They just bred them there and made some really pretty colors. And then all of a sudden, people were like, wow, they don't die all the time because they have harder water there. And they started pulling them in. There's a lot of different color variants. You'll see a blue ram, a gold ram. Both of those are literally the same species. It's just a different color variant. There's also a balloon ram that's just kind of a stunted, weird body that they managed to magic together. There is also, as weird as it is, a Bolivian ram. Now, I always am amused by this because that name makes no sense. That is the ram cichlid. That is Ramarizi. That's why we call it a ram, right? So, what does Microgeophagus altispinosa have to do with the Ramarizi? I don't know. Why did we keep calling it a ram? I don't know. Apparently, we just like that name. We're like, that is what that thing is called. But yeah, theoretically, it would be like a Bolivian Microgeophagus. I don't know why we don't call it that, but we don't. But the Bolivian ram is arguably, in my opinion, probably the better suited of the 2. Rams can be a little tough. A lot of people have a lot of hard times with them. If you get one and it dies a month later, you go, wow, I really don't know what I'm doing. I can keep all these tetras, this little ram dies. Do not feel bad. We have all murdered our fair share of rams. Pretty sure. Everybody raise your hand if you have killed some rams. And I mean just straight up murdered them. Yeah. Yeah, you go, I can do that. That's going to be easy. Like, you know, we don't mean to kill them. We try to do the best we can. But, yes, they like, you know, warmer water. A lot of people kind of think of a discus. That is what rams like. They like that warmer temp. You know, they can really tolerate getting cranked up to 84 to 88. They like soft water. They like very, very stable water. A lot of fish can tolerate a spike. Rams can't. Rams need that like level playing field the whole time. Some of the better keys to success: do not overstock that fish. You know, don't go, oh, I'm gonna put some tetras in here. And next thing you know, you've got, you know, 35 fish in a 10-gallon. They're all teeny tiny, but it pushes those parameters up. Try to stock it very minimally. They love carbon dioxide. If you're running a high-tech tank, they do great. Honestly, they were breeding up at ADG whenever we had it. I was like, well, see, apparently they like really highly acidic water. Let's see. The Alta Spinosa, or the Bolivian Rams, they actually get pretty sizey. A lot of people kind of view it as another little dwarf, but they can get up to 3-4 inches. They get some really pretty colors. They're very unique. They also happen to come from very hard water. Like in the wild, they're actually caught up to 7.5 in pH, which is not but a, you know, kind of a spit's distance from our tap. So they can tolerate a lot more. They like a little bit cooler temp. Generally, in a general community tank, I think a Bolivian Ram is probably the better bet. You know, especially if you're new to rams. If you're dead set on keeping German blues, electric blues, you know, rams, I give you props. I will try to help you as best as possible, but if you get 6 months out of those fish, you are doing amazing. You should share your wealth of knowledge. Everyone will appreciate it. Let's see, the next big group that I think a lot of people tie into South American dwarves is Apistogrammas. There are a lot. There are a lot, and there will probably be a lot more. These are really tiny fish. Currently, there are 92 species recognized. I would probably guess that if we don't see 50 more within the next 10 years, I would be amazed. Because they're dragging these little creeks, and lo and behold, 10 creeks over, there's a weird orange one. Or it's got different fins, or it does something. Generally, they are also breed in a similar fashion to the Microgeophagus. They're kind of egg spawners. They spawn, you know, in a kind of small pit, or they'll kind of make a little cave and kind of guard their fry in there. There's one oddball, the Barlowi, which is actually Apistogramma barlowi. It is one of the only apistos that is a mouth breeder. So just be aware there are mouth breeders. For some reason in South America, it pops up. And it's just really weird. You never expect it. You're like, dude, these Severums are really cool. Wait a minute, they're mouth breeding. Wait, they just broke the system. Mouth breeding seems to be one of those weird little habits that just pops back up in South Americans. Apistogramma are actually a little bit cooler than rams. So, you know, these come from mostly in Peru, in the upper areas of the Amazon. They're really kind of shallow water fish. They kind of hide. They like a lot of leaf litter. There's a pair up in the front and a pair in the back. Usually they do best in pairs. Sometimes they can work as a harem. I found a harem to be actually better with certain apistos. It seems to be that the male can sometimes get a little bit frisky and not know when to kind of chill out. So giving him 2 females to kind of play between, it actually ends up working a little bit better. Especially, you know, these are in smaller tanks, you know, 10, 20 gallons. You can keep a trio, and they're just fine. I will say that with both species, I love flake food. I love the ease of flake food. Say goodbye to flake food. They like frozen meaty fare. You want to bulk up your rams. You want to bulk up your apistos. Give them some bloodworms, some brine shrimp, some mysis. You know, if you can find that elusive pellet that they seem to really like, share the wealth, because I don't know what that is. They seem to just look at it and be like, I would prefer to starve. And they promptly do.
Captive breds do a little bit better going to pellets, obviously.
Yes.
Color bits.
Yeah.
Old tetracolor color bits were really great for my triple red cockatoo.
There you go.
Whatever it was. I mean, I had them for years, and that was primarily what they like.
Nibbling. Yeah. It just seems like I've never found some that really just go after it with gusto. You know, like if you want to bulk up that fish, dude, start feeding them some frozen. And honestly, frozen becomes affordable when you're only feeding some 2-inch fish. You're like, all right, well, let me split this frozen cube in two and make it last. Let's see. Apistogramma, there's a huge body of them. Agazes, the cockatoides tend to be the more commonly bred of them. The borleys, the pearlies. They honestly, I fully expect that you're going to start seeing groupings, kind of clades of them, and that's really the best way to kind of understand them. You know, if it's in the McMastery group or if it's in the Borley group, it's a good way to approach them. Those are generally also regional areas. So, you know, it's going to be inside of that group, you're going to find species that are very closely related as far as geographic ranges, and that's going to help in identifying the sizes and the different colors that are going to exhibit. We see a lot of just random oddballs that just pop up, and that might be the first time you've ever seen that weird Apistogramma. Don't be afraid of it. Just, you know, do your research, figure out what it's going to be like, and approach it in that manner. I'll kind of go over tank setup for a kind of blackwater South American tank at the end, but I'll kind of go through the groups first. The next one, I have honestly never seen an Apistogrammoides. I don't know if anyone actually has. There's one species in it. It's really tiny. I don't even really have a good understanding of what makes it an Apistogrammoides as opposed to Apistogrammus. Apparently, it's weird enough that it needed its own genus. Let's see, Biotodoma. I know that we had a question in the group about the Biotodoma recently. They call them Cupid cichlids. I've always kind of viewed them as a smaller. I approach them as a smaller version of the Tianna Cara or the Schildicaras. They are basically kind of a smaller geophagine type, but if you look at them like the Tianna Cara, that's kind of a good point of reference. I know that Ben had brought up the fact that there's a Cupido, but very few of those Cupidos actually enter into the hobby. What we are seeing is the
Wyverines.
So
what it is the Cupidos, it's the Biotodoma Cupidos, and then to me they're like right in between the Geophagus and the Bolivian Ram. They've kind of got that face of a ram. They're not actually earth eaters per se, but they definitely hunt and peck at the bottom. You're talking about maybe a 6-inch cichlid, but the thing that comes into play is that the Cupidos are the ones with all the color. I say all the color. They're this kind of golden auburn color, very almost brightly lit. And then the Wyverines are kind of they've got a nice silver kind of gunmetal kind of shade to them. But a lot of the stores that have been bringing in the Cupid cichlid, it's actually a Wyverine. It's not the Cupido. So if you go there and you actually look up Cupid cichlid, for the first couple of images, you're probably going to see the Cupido, and then you may see the Wyverine plugged in there somewhere. So you're like, okay, this is it, whatever this is, maybe I don't know. And then you get to the store, And it's like, okay, well, now all I'm seeing is what was plugged in here and not everything else. So it's not, you've got to be real careful about what you get yourself, you know, calling the store and saying, hey, you've got Cupid cichlids and I want it. There's a good chance it may not right now at this point in time be what you're actually looking for.
Yeah, and I mean, this is something that you're going to find commonly. Common names are killers, you know, and I know that we kind of drive that home on our club and the other clubs in town, you know your Latin. Don't be afraid of the Latin names. I know that it's spooky, but yeah, if you get to know Latin names won't be wrong.
Well, and the other thing about Latin names is the deeper you dive into the hobby, the less common names you're going to start running into, because there are fish that exist out there that no longer have common names anymore. It's only the Latin name. Like, I mean, you know, we're fortunate enough that when we look at the ultims, angelfish, or things like that, we're able to kind of, because ultim's a nice small word that we, you know, like rams, we grab a word out of the Latin name and apply some sort of commonality to it. But the deeper you delve, especially in the South American cichlid world, you're going to run into fish that no longer have common names.
Yeah, so there's no hobby name.
It sucks. I can't do it. I'll show people the word before I even try to pronounce it. I'm going to show it next time.
Or you'll start ending up with
so don't be afraid of it. It is what it is.
You'll see these silly names that literally it's just some dude selling fish down in South America that goes, I've got a purple fairy cichlid. And you're like, what is that? You just made that up. You so just made that up.
The problem is you've got these people in South America that don't speak English. So the literal translation from maybe Spanish or even Portuguese to English, there's a breakdown in communication there. So what you're looking for, what it's being sent to from the importer and all that stuff, it's not, there's a language barrier. And that's why you go as much as you can go to that Latin name, because it's going to give you the best.
And sometimes it's up to literally you to figure out what species you have. You've got to start doing some ray counts. Let me tell you, if you've never done some ray counts, it is a lot of fun. It is a lot of fun to enjoy every minute of it as that fish darts around and you're going, dude, I got to 10.
Yeah, try counting all the fish in a tank store. You know how that goes.
Oh, yeah.
But a lot of it too, though, is we are lucky enough to where there has been a humongous expansion in the variety of fish that have entered the hobby in just the last 10 years. In South America, Tanganyikas has blown up the last 10 years. And so there hasn't been time for common to even catch up with it, because most of your smaller stores, thank goodness we've had a big explosion in Houston with a lot more local type stores. But when big stores don't carry anything, then no one names anything commonly. So you're stuck with Latin.
I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if Apistos turned into something along the lines of Coriatura or Plecos, where we start to see numbers associated with the species, especially over the next year.
Too lazy.
Right now we're lazy because we've only got 90 species that we know of. You start getting into the
I've seen Apistos actually numbered.
I think I have too. That's
and
what I thought.
you know, the Stephidin are also numbered because they're coming out so fast. Okay, so that was the Biotechus. The Tianna Cara. They call them checkerboard cichlids, not to be confused with the Dicrosis, but they're another one. There's two species, punctulatum. I know somebody had mentioned, did you mention? Somebody had mentioned getting some checkerboards. And
I did, yeah.
Yeah. They do appear in the hobby. They're not very common. They're another small dwarf, typical dwarf kind of characteristics. They kind of got a checkerboard pattern. They're a really neat fish, just something that we don't normally see. And it's definitely one of those oddities in a tank. The next is one that we see somewhat more commonly, the Dicrosis. Dicrosis is one of my favorites. Those are the checkerboards. You get a lyre tail or a maculatus, the spade tail filaments. They're really a pretty small fish. They're much more closely related to part of that pike cichlid group, and it looks like it probably came off of that. They actually used to be kind of tied back into pike cichlids, and they've been kind of juggled around taxonomically for a little while. I think that probably when we start doing more genetic work, we're going to realize that some of these fish that we've been tying in with geos are actually more closely related to pikes. But the dichrosis are actually a great choice. They're a little bit more tolerant of water parameters than a lot of the Apistogrammas are, so they actually end up doing a little bit better. They've got a really pretty color. They've got a different body shape, for certain. But size-wise, they're teeny tiny. I mean, we're talking 2 to 3 inches. You know, if you get a 2 or 3 inch one, you've got a giant. The next is, I listed the Tianna Cara. Oftentimes they're referred to as bandit cichlids, but I mean, really, they're what they call the shield cichlids, and that's just because there's down in South America, in Guyana, there's a small little like area of land that looks like a shield, and that's why they call them shield cichlids, because they're like literally all from that shield little area. It looks just like a shield. But they're a smaller kind of geophagine. They exhibit that sort of typical behavior and look. They've got a very stark look. But once they get up to size and breeding, they're amazing fish, and they're very peaceful.
Very pearlescent. The very vibrant stripes over the eyes, banded cichlid, and then yeah, very, you know, you'll see them small. Usually they come in somewhere in about the 2 to 4 inch range. And they don't really look like much. It's just kind of like a plain, almost white fish. But as they grow, those scales, they stay white. They've got this pearly flash to them, and especially once they start to get breeding in your tank, it's...
And they're noticeable because a lot of people don't keep them. You know, you see those typical tanks, and you see that wonderful Tianna Cara breeding group, and you go, oh my God, what is that fish?
Well, and a lot of it that comes down to is when you're looking at fish online and looking for pictures, 9 times out of 10, when you see this flash, this pizzazz, it's breeding colors. So if you don't end up with a pair, it's probably not going to turn out to look like that. So a lot of people, you know, they see that fish on their phone, and then they go to the store and they're like, that's not, is that the same fish? But you've got to get it home and let it turn into what it's going to turn into. Don't count them out. They really are. They're an underrated fish because they don't have this pop or pizzazz to them, and they're not really all that well known. But when you get them in there, people walk by and be like.
And we've got a handful of keepers that are really hardcore into the Tianna Cara in our group. 3 or 4 different keepers that honestly, that was that first love that they kind of jumped into. So if you throw up some questions, you will have a lot of people that just randomly, you know, that I could tag that could give you some really good answers that, you know, aren't typical people on the group that usually are hardcore. They jumped into the Tianna Cara.
If you want to see some, Jamie's got some on her today. So.
Oh, does she? Oh, okay. Awesome. The next is the Mazarunia. To be honest, I've never seen one at a shop. It's another tiny little genus with 3 species. They can get up to like 3.3 inches. Typical South American dwarf. The next is Tianna Cara candida. The Tianna Cara, it's 1 species in the genus. They're a cute-looking little dwarf that looks similar to an apisto. It almost reminds me of a very thin female Apistogramma. They're a gorgeous little fish. I would definitely recommend snapping them up if you see them. We see them occasionally pop up in the hobby. They're a neat one. The next is Tianna Cara. Tianna Cara, I think. That's spelled. Did I say that right? If I didn't,
I know.
They're a huge fish back in the 80s, and one that just disappeared out of the hobby. They call them keyhole cichlids. And keyholes are just gorgeous fish. And dude, you can get pond-raised ones that literally can tolerate tap. I mean, you can treat them badly, and these fish are just bulletproof. But a lot of people just kind of gravitated away because they didn't have bright colors. But, you know, you want something that's neat, that you walk up and you see a whole bunch of keyhole cichlids. It's something that would stand out because nobody keeps them The next on our list, I hear them referred to as orange-shouldered geos, but crobias. Crobias are another smaller geophagine, also from that kind of Tianna Cara shield area. They are a gorgeous fish. They're also another species from the Xingu River Basin. We actually have a guy, we went collecting there a couple times back at his brackish pond that has a huge collection that he's breeding. Ken Black.
With the damming that they're talking about doing to the Xingu River, this fish, along with the zebra bucko, are two of the fish that will be, there's a potential that in the next 10 years, they will only exist because we decide to keep them.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what the dam of this river is going to do. So, again, a very underrated fish that the more publicity it gets.
And honestly, we have a successful breeder here in Houston.
Yeah, we do.
Like, you can get this fish. It's not impossible. I mean, I think I was there and I think he was selling them for like $5 each for like 3-inch fish, which is insane. Like, you try to find this fish online and do good luck. This guy's got tanks full of them. And he's like, I do tap water. It's done. See, there's 3 breeding over there. You're like, dude, that is amazing. This fish is like crazy. It's going to be CITES listed soon. And you've got probably double the population down than the Xingu.
It's a good thing.
Yes, it is. The next, one of my favorites, hands down, a lot of people have, like, they go, oh, I want dwarf cichlids, I love dwarf cichlids, and then they go, dude, I hate them because they all die. The Laticaras. The Curviceps are your friend. Dude, this is a fish that probably is from the 70s in the hobby. You can find Curviceps, they call them flag cichlids. There's also the Dorsiger, which is the red-breasted Acara. Dude, just a delightful fish. I know that Darlis, is Darlis here?
She's not wrong.
Oh, well, Darlis has some that I recommended over at TNT meeting. Anybody else have some? Any of the Laticara? From AG? Yeah, they're a delightful fish. They don't have the huge pop and pizzazz of the Apistos, but you want to know an easy fish that you will have breeding in your tank that is just a fun fish to have? The Laticaras. They call them the smiling Acaras. It's because of the coloring. It actually makes it look like they have perma-smiles. And that ergo's the smiling Acaras. They are small. They take literally, like, you can dump pellets in there and they're happy. They're happy with anything. They're happy with tap. They'll breed readily. And this is a fish that only gets 3-4 inches. But it's not a typical dwarf that we think of when we approach a dwarf. We see them just scattered in normal tanks, and you go, oh, that's not a dwarf. The dwarfs are over here in the nano section. But that fish right there is probably better suited to a normal tank than any of the dwarfs. The next is the Tianna Cara. All right, so the Tianna Cara, this is one of those, like, gray areas. Welcome to the gray area. Tianna Cara has a lot of fish in it, and honestly, the only one that I ever usually spot is a goldeneye. The goldeneye dwarf or the Tianna Cara. I can't remember what the actual one is, but so it has legally one that we occasionally see in the hobby, which is the Avinacara, which is the zebra Acara. That is legitimately in the Tianna Cara group currently. Now, a bunch of dudes went, I don't think that fish should be in there. So they kind of made their own Avinacara. Well, it's in limbo. Sometimes you'll see them listed as Avinacara. Sometimes, legally speaking, in the ichthyological community, no one has formally recognized the Avinacara as a valid genus. it might take 3 or 4 years before that actually all plays out. It's kind of...
What I've seen when you're doing your research online, Tianna Cara is more of what I would go to look for than the Tianna Cara, because it's most of what I'm doing online when I do my research, because I've kept them, I didn't discover them until probably about 1.5 years ago, and they're probably one of the most underrated South American fish I've ever seen.
Yeah.
Because they're hard to find, and we've got shops that have gotten them in recently, and I know Katie's got them breeding in a outdoor pond right now.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's outdoor, but they're breeding in a pond right now.
And I mean,
so
they're not a cheap fish. You know, usually they run 125 to 150 a pair. So but for colors, they're just gorgeous. Dude, they're a terrific dwarf that stays small. If you want a nice kind of crown jewel fish in a 10-gallon, then a zebra car is hard to beat. Let's see. All right, the next one, it's going to be kind of a curveball. Everybody came in for dwarves, so I'm going to talk about Pterophyllum leopoldi. That is the dwarf angelfish. Now, there's 3 species of angelfish. The scalaris are normal, that we normally see, and then every once in a while you see the giant ultims, but a lot of people ignore the leopoldi. And the leopoldi is the third kind of like weird stepchild of the angelfish world that everybody passes up. Honestly, I was at Fish Gallery at a meeting, like 2 or 3 meetings back at the one downtown, and they had a tank of them wild caught. Now, they only get 2 to 4 inches. That's as big as they get. So they are much better suited to a smaller tank. And they had wild caughts for something like $20 each. And I went, you want to know a cool fish that everybody's going to walk right by today? And they all did. And they were like, oh, angelfish. And they just kept walking by, and I'm like, dude, those are wild caughts. I mean, you put wild-caught ultims in the same category, and everybody would be snapping them up at $75 a piece. But you see Leopoldi, and you just keep on walking. They're a great choice for a smaller tank.
What I think one of the things to take into consideration across all dwarf species is what we're seeing with a lot of the dwarf species is, and this is the same for discus as well as angels and that, but what you see as far as these color morphs are concerned, they're non-existent in the wild. Yes. So like a double red cockatoo Apistogramma that color scheme does not exist naturally. This is select line breeding for man to make this fish produce these colors that we're seeing. So, not everybody, but as most people start to get more seriously into the hobby, you start drifting away from what some of us might consider ornamental and more towards the natural aspect of things. So it's very, again, you talk about the color aspect of it and walking by some wild-caught angels, it's super easy to do, but slowing down and taking your time and looking at what you're seeing, you might, like, literally, I walk into a fish store with my phone out and either seriously fish or Google up, because I'm going to look at every single aspect of what I can find on that fish and not underestimate what I'm looking at because it might be wild caught.
Seriously fish is where I go. I mean, there are those few species that aren't on seriously fish that are just,
fish-based might catch them.
Yeah, it's,
it's just on that point is with the angels, is your ultims, your leopolds, that's what they look like in the wild.
Yeah.
Your scalars have been
marble and whatever.
Yeah, they've become that ornamental strain.
Yes.
And if you're looking at an ultim or a leopoldi, literally they haven't been in the hobby long enough for us to really monkey with them. So the leopoldi is naturally what it looks like in the wild, and it's a neat fish. And it looks tiny because you're going, well, those look about the same size as the scalars, but the scalars are juvies. Those are full adults, And I mean, finding full adult angelfish at $20 an angel, that's crazy. Wild caught from the Amazon. And it's one that I don't ever see somebody just post up their tank and be like, oh, hey, this is my Leopoldi tank. And you're like, dude, that would be awesome. Dude, that'd be so cool. Like, nobody else does that. All right, so the next thing is, again, breaking the rules, throwing that curveball. We're going to talk about Dwarf Pikes. And actually, I've got We've got Ben up here. He's going to come up so that he can be in our feed, and he's going to discuss the Wallachi group.
So I have kept, it's funny because right now, I'll let Roy get into more a little bit of the how much of the dwarf, because there's a dozen species of dwarf pikes, but really what we see here in the hobby as of late is really only 2 of them. It's Crinchella Curviceps and Crinchella regani. And so these fish, again, we talked about common names. If you just Google dwarf pike, chances are you're going to get probably about a 50-50 split down the middle of Curviceps or reganis. And then like if you go to Seriously Fish, again, like Roy was saying, does a wonderful job of listing the Latin name, but in the parentheses, they've got what you might consider the common name. So with this common name, it literally says Curviceps Dwarf Cichlid. So like, okay, great, they took the last Latin name and added Dwarf Cichlid onto the end of it. There's nothing to go with it. But here's the really interesting thing that I found is, so I've talked with a couple of people about this today, but what I've seen is so these dwarf pikes, to me, I have a 280-gallon blackwater tank. This is 5 feet by 2.5 feet by 3 feet. So a lot of room for a little 3.5-inch fish to move around. I've got broken line tetras in there that are about, I don't know, that big, and then I've got some larger ultims. They do fine with everything. I put a pair of Apistos in there, and it didn't matter where the Apistos were. If they came out, the dwarf pikes went after the Apistos. And you're 280 gallons of water, you can't find a happy hiding place somewhere in the tank. But no, wherever it was, they were just all over them. So as far as their aggression and their nature is concerned, I don't see a problem with them being able to hold their own against, you know, some of the more medium-sized fish that we've talked about, but with more of the sticking with the dwarf regime, they're probably better suited by themselves and with some probably a little bit more overzealous tetra species like broken lines, Buenos Aires, Colombian tetras, things like this that may.
It's got a little bit more
bulk, more robust to them. They're not. I've got ultims in there, but my ultims are 5-6 inches, so I'm not seeing any fin nipping from them on that. So I don't know I really don't know about their fin nippage, how much we're going to run into with that. So obviously, stray carefully. But the really interesting thing that we've come into lately, especially with the regani and the Curviceps. So when I first saw these come into Houston about 1.5 years ago, the Curviceps were, like I said, probably about 3 inches. Pretty small heads, pretty small tail fins, but it's like they have a pot belly, like a gut, kind of like a pot belly of big guts. They're very robust around their midsection. And so I would tell people 10, 20 gallon, preferably 20 gallon long for a pair of them, they're going to do just fine.
And those are the ones you got from Tap.
Yes, I got from that aquarium.
Sasha's managed to finally get them to start eating.
Yeah, and I've got, and sexing them is a whole other ballgame. I've got 2 males. I added 4 more, and they killed all 4 of the other ones. So I don't know if they're just bad guys together or they're not. But here's the thing is now we've just seen a couple stores bring in some more, and these reganis and these Curviceps that we're seeing, I'm talking about almost 5 or 6 inches long, and these are still considered. These are the exact same species of dwarf pike. And the only thing that I've been able to find online anywhere about anything is that it's different collection points. So you're talking about where these animals are drawn from the wild, the sections of rivers, obviously their body size is adapted depending on a variety of options from predation to food sources and everything in between. So with that being said, when you're looking online and looking for information about these fish, take it with a grain of salt. Because like mine that I keep in my tank, I tell you all day, 20 gallon long for a pair, you're good to go. But the ones that I just saw come in, I'm not going to let anybody, I recommend 40 gallon breeder, 55 gallon, maybe even a 75 gallon. Because again, you're talking about a 6-inch fish. So don't, when you're with these fish and you're interacting, or you're deciding on what you're going to keep, don't, just because you see online it says 4 inches or whatever, really go, my mentality is my mentality is I'm a fish keeper. I like creating biotopes, but I'm a fish keeper, so I'm going to try to replicate the needs of said animal. But forums are a very touchy. You can get a lot of misinformation in forums, so you got to pick and choose where you get your info from. But look at the sources and talk to the stores that are here in town that are bringing the fish in. Those are the places you need to go to get your information. If they can give you a collection point, some may be able to, Unfortunately, some may not. But the ones that can, that's going to keep that helps you all the more to build and seek out what kind of environment you're going to want. But they're nifty, great little fish. But literally, I went into the store and I looked at them and I was like, I looked at the other. I was like, I'm going to take none of them because now I have to go home and look at my fish again and determine if I'm able to sex these things or not. And then when I got home, I looked at the picture on my phone and looked at the one that was sitting there in my tank, and it's like there's everything that says this is the exact same fish, but there's just so much, the size difference and the variances in the shape of the body, it clearly shows me like, I'm not going to take, even if I have a female from here, I'm not going to take and put it with a female from here because you
could be crossing.
You could be crossing different collection points and you don't know what that's going to do to the, you have to remember, with West African, South American dwarfs, a lot of these fish exist in places that are not very safe to go to and study these animals. This is why we're constantly discovering all these new species of Apistos, West Africans, because the countries themselves are extremely unstable. And so for them to be so unstable, it limits us in our knowledge, because it takes some people with some pretty big cojones to go over there and truck back into these mountains, because you're talking about there's potentially civilizations out there that don't interact with, first world or even third world country. They're indigenous people, and the definition of that. So, with that being said, these fish are, it may get to a point where as these countries continue to grow and change, like I said, with the Crobius and Goosix, it could eventually be up to us to keep the fish on the planet. There's a pretty famous reptile keeper, and his biggest thing is conservation through commercialization. And to me, we're already so far gone, it's the only thing that makes sense at this point. So, with that being said, the dwarf pikes and the species that we're looking at today, there are some really, really good fish. But do your research. I literally can go, and the wonderful thing, especially about Seriously Fish, is when you go and do your research, Seriously Fish does a wonderful job of saying possible tank mates. And they'll list the Latin names of those possible tank mates. I literally highlight with Google, copy and paste it in my search bar, and then I see, okay, the common name, okay, maybe I got it, maybe I didn't, whatever, but your world will literally start, I'm like, okay, I want that. No, now I want that. Now, and your world just constantly expands, and the knowledge that we gain, we're not just, it's a hobby for some of us, but at the end of the day, it's also potentially the fact that we are the only thing keeping a species going at this point. And so, dwarf pikes, I'll let him get into a little bit more. Again, the other dozen species, I haven't really done that much research on because I'm more interested. I'm very skeptical about ordering fish online. It will take me I'll go back and forth, talk to people here locally that have done it, because Houston, again, has very hard water. I do not do anything with RO as far as for my black water tank. I do use a ton of tannins, and I have botanicals, but I don't do any RO treatments or anything like that. I've had no problem acclimating these fish to our water, both the Rogatis and the Curviceps. My temperature on my tank, I think, is about 79 or 80 degrees, fluctuating depending on what my house is doing. So they're not real picky as far as what they'll eat. I mean, I sometimes throw flake fruit in when I'm walking by. I feed frozen. They're not really.
And honestly, these are the same. Literally, they're in the same genus as that red pike.
Yeah, this big guy right here.
I mean, we're not talking about them having their own genus. Literally, it's the same genus.
Yeah, so you look up Cichlid sabrina. That's you're talking about that's an 18-inch pike that literally can be the diameter of your arm. Yeah. Or like a baseball bat.
So behavior-wise, literally, you're getting what could be a monster fish that you go, I can never really afford a tank and have these huge monster pikes. You can do that in a 40-gallon.
And they don't have if you've watched this guy since you've been up here, you'll see him. He does not back down from any of the other fish in the tank. He goes back and forth with them, and they are very prone to doing that. The dwarfs, though, again, like I said, I see them go after the Apistos and other dwarf fish, but when it comes to, tetraspecies and even cories and things like that, they don't, I have a pleco, 3-big pleco that I have a kind of a log that's got a weird spiral effect to it, and the dwarf pikes live in there because they're cave brooders. So this is where they're going to gonna, obviously the big things, flower pots work, or clay flower pots work very well for breeding. They'll also usually pick like weird knots and logs and stuff like that to try to get up in there and hide their eggs in. But like my pleco will get up in their cave. You'll see this giant tail fin sticking out of their cave, and they're sticking out like right on either side of his tail fin. And it's like they don't try to chase him out of there. They don't really care about him. So as far as their temperament goes, I don't think from what I've seen so far that their temperament really is nearly as robust as what something like this, or especially like the Zabrina, pike cichlids are going to be.
They call smaller fish. You can't keep small fish.
Yeah.
No, you're not exactly. That's
don't go with neon.
Yeah,
tetras,
that
becomes food.
That's where I was talking about, like the Colombian tetras, diamond tetras. Those more, you don't want to do anything slender and extreme, like pencil fish. Some of the other style pencil fish you might be able to get away with, but it's still you're skirting that line.
Yeah. I would be wary about anything that looks small and cylinder shaped.
Yeah.
That is food shaped.
And
we'll talk those food
Romeos,
shaped
cardinals, neons. But yeah, anything in the more robust Buenos Aires, broken lines, Colombian tetras, all of those types of things, they're not, and especially since they're a school, they're not really going to mess with the pikes all that much. There's information that you'll read online that they do all right in planted tanks, and that's absolutely right. Their mouths are not really big enough to worry about uprooting the plants or anything like that. They're also pretty much carnivores, so they're not going to be tearing apart plants or doing anything like that. But they do primarily exist in blackwater setups, or I say blackwater setups. They exist in blackwater rivers and tributaries of nature, and so with that, there's not really a whole lot of. If there's any vegetation that you're going to see as far as greenery, it's from branches that are now growing down and sagging into the water line, or the rain season's come in and now we're dealing with more of a flooded forest type of scenario.
Or floaters, a lot, what few plants do exist in that Amazon area. You're talking about like Amazon frogbit.
Yeah.
That floating plant that really just chokes out the light for any of the other plants that might be down below.
And that's another good point. Is this lighting for these fish? I mean, originally I had my tank lights because I have the FinX 24/7, so they just run a simulated sunrise and sunset feature. And originally I had my tank set up to simulate like whatever time of day it was here in Houston. And the problem was when I get home at work at 7 o'clock at night, I go to look at my fish, the sun's setting, and because I have cannons all in the water, I can't even see the back of my tank anymore. So I'm like, I got this nice tank that I just set up, and now I'm not even enjoying the fish in it. So then I changed my lighting cycle more to fit my schedule and when I'm home and when I'm doing things, and now I can much more enjoy it. But dim lighting in a blackwater tank is
it's a recipe for not seeing fish.
It's when you talk about everybody's like, well, just do a highlighted blackwater tank, and it's like you're kind of contradicting yourself now a little bit because that's not you want to see it, but that's not the point. And the other thing to remember is obviously when you deal with blackwater, you're generally dealing with things that leach tannins. And I know you're going to get into a little bit more on this later, but when you're leaching tannins, all of this is it's pods, it's seed pods, it's branches, but it's all decomposing. So it's releasing bio. So one of the things that you'll start to run into is when you look at a blackwater tributary, if you were to take a still photo of it, you would think this is like stagnant swamp water. But if you put a camera under the water, this water is moving. It's trucking. It's very highly oxygenated water. The problem is when you try to replicate this in an aquarium, this river is constantly flowing and receiving rainwater and moving up and down. We do water changes, but on our day-to-day, the decomposition that's happening from the botanicals that are in the water is creating a biofilm on the surface. And now you're essentially gassing out your fish because you're losing gas exchange from the surface. So surface skimmers are a big thing to invest in when you're dealing with these types of fish. Even though it's a little 40-gallon breeder, I still recommend.
Yeah, and those Eheim surface skimmers, they do the job.
I've got one.
It looks tiny. Dude, honestly, I can throw it on my 150, and that
I've got one
little thing.
I've got one on my 280, and the only problem I've run into now is that I have a perma area where
it sucks in.
No, the bio load is just in this one little area, and so literally it'll suck up air bubbles, and then when it shoots out the air bubbles, they get stuck in the bio, but then they just get sucked back. So it just keeps generating this flow of air pocketiness. So I've got to kind of splash the water or move it around. I haven't quite got the power heads lined up yet, but again, surface flow and agitation, you don't need running water, but you definitely need to break up or have something to deal with that surface, the biofilm that you get. It's totally not harmful. A lot of people see it, their first thing is, oh my God, what is wrong with my tank? It's doing exactly what it's supposed to. You just don't have enough, we can't generate enough undercurrent flow to combat what's happening on the surface because we're in a closed environment.
And bubblers are cool, but gas exchange occurs at the surface. That's where the magic happens. Get that surface rolling, moving, and you've got the gas exchange occurring. You let an oily film sit on top of it, and you can hammer in air from underneath as much as you want, but eventually your oxygen's just going to start slowly falling.
When I first kind of got into the setup, I even noticed that my ultims were coming up and doing the gasping at the surface. I didn't worry. The dwarf pikes didn't seem to do it, probably because again you're talking about a 2.5, 3 inch fish versus a 5 or 6 inch fish, so there's some size difference there. But that is 100% key. Again, it's not unnatural to have happen in your tank, but it can be fatal to the fish because they're basically suffocating in the water. There's not enough oxygen in the water anymore. And so yes, adding an air stone in an emergency situation will remedy it, but it's not, you're putting a Band-Aid on the hole, which is essentially what you're doing.
Yeah, kind of when you're setting that tank up, make certain, and we'll get
I'll let you get more into that.
All right, so let's see. We've only got a few more. There we go. No? Yeah, there we go. All right, so we've got Teleocichlas. All right, we need a new microphone. I like when G-Hack people call. Hey, where are you? In the meeting. Teleocichlas. Teleocichlas are actually a tiny little branch that actually is off the Pike cichlid group. They're another one we occasionally see. There's 9 species. They generally get 3 to 5 inches. The Tapa hose is one of the more sought-after collection spots for the Teleocichlas. Another good choice, but again, a lot of these you kind of catch as catch can, you know. Right. One last little one that I'd like to kind of bring up is Aquadem's culture. They kind of fell off and disappeared in the hobby for a long time. They were super cool back in the 70s and 80s, but then all of a sudden nobody really wanted the blue Acaras anymore because they really weren't that blue. Well, 2010 comes along and it turns out that some crazy person's been really working with these things and they bred the electric blue Acara. And all of a sudden everybody goes, dude, I've never seen this fish before. And you're like, dude, I remember seeing them back in the 80s and you couldn't get those things away, dude. They weren't blue at all. They are a good choice. They get to about 6 inches, so arguably dwarf. But honestly, they will eat neons and stuff like that. But as long as you go with a more robust one, they're honestly, I've had them breed in tap in my field tanks. Literally, I have them on auto feeder. I'll come in and I'll have breeding pairs every time. And they'll have a clutch. They come over and they attack my algae magnet. They're really cute. They are very personable fish. A lot of people that have them just swear by them. I think that they're fun. It's a great choice if you're wanting to play around with the South American dwarf and succeed right off the bat. They've got a whole bunch of them back there. Sexing them isn't too hard. Look for those. With a lot of these, you know, look for brighter colors in the males. Look for that, your dorsal and your anal fin. They're going to be extremely elongated in males. Females are going to be more rounded or shorter. Look in relationship to that collar tail. I mean, you can. A lot of people have a hard time sexing severums, but if you look at where that dorsal is, that dorsal is past its tail fin. So that tells me that is a male. Whereas a female, she'll have pointed ones, but it only goes to maybe a half, or just the start of that caudal fin. So it's a good way to kind of tell that length of that dorsal and that caudal. A lot of times males are much larger than females. I mean, honestly, in Apistos, sometimes you'll get a 5-inch male and a 2-inch female, which sounds just crazy, but that's just the way that they work. Let's see. How to set up a tank for success. You can go with tap. Tap is a wonderful option. It's real easy to maintain, but some of your rare stuff is going to want lower pH. And people go, dude, I set up my tank, I got my 10-gallon rolling, it's all good. I got some pH down, and I squirt that in and do nothing. It doesn't do anything. Well, what is wrong with my pH down? Okay, well, what's going on is we have a ridiculously hard tap water. I would recommend making a purchase. These are wonderful. This is a TDS meter. This is a total dissolved solids. You will be amazed. We bump on what is arguably polluted water. Any water that's above 500 parts per million is considered polluted. Ours, I have hit almost 700 out of our tap. Down in the Amazon, where these fish are found, you want to know, want to take a guess on where our parts per million is? 0. Sometimes it gets to 10. Now, the easiest way to replicate this in a home is RO. Now, RO uses basically pumps and membranes to tear out all these minerals and leave us with usually, arguably, up to 5 parts per million. That's kind of acceptable for RO. Now, almost all these shops sell RO for salt water. So just get you a jug and get you 5 gallons, and then you can do all your water changes. In a small tank, it's doable. Now, if you've got a 200-gallon tank, you really need to start thinking about an RO system. This is probably tap. They're using tap water. Yeah. So there's another process that I think a lot of people get confused. They go, well, I went to the store, they didn't have anything that was listed as RO. Distilled water, they boil the water and they collect the steam. It's a different process. They didn't force it through RO membranes and through 5 different DI resins. Same thing. Usually just check it with the TDS meter and it'll hit 0. So distilled water is another good choice. If you're ever up at the store, that's what that is. They just boil the water, all the minerals are left, they collect the pure water. You don't always have to use 100% RO. Sometimes a mix will give you kind of a little bit of buffer, so it kind of maintains that pH, so you'll give like 20% tap, 80% RO, and it'll kind of, it makes it a lot less, you know, you have to kind of invest into. I would definitely recommend it if you've got a problem cichlid, or, you know, you want to invest into some $80 Apistogrammas, you know, maybe start thinking about customizing the water a little bit more. pH down won't be really necessary at that point. Literally, if you have pure water, imagine that this is huge range, and that's our percentage of hydrogen ions, the pH. 7 is where it's perfectly natural, neutral. If you have distilled water that hasn't been affected one way or the other, it should be 7. Now, they go, man, I'm running my tank at 3.5, right? I've gotten it really acidic. How do I do a water change? Because if I dump in 7, won't that swing it up? It happens all the time in the wild. It rains.
Yeah, exactly.
It rains all the time. So they naturally feel that sediment, and your tannins are going to affect it much quicker. RO water is affected by tannins, and I don't know if everybody knows what tannins are, but there are different ways to kind of basically acidify water. Here's a little pack that Tannin Aquatics did. They're a great company. I know that Fish Gallery had some Indian almond leaves. If you catch the gentleman up front, he might be able to direct you, but you guys want to pass it around and look.
And also, just remember, oak leaves and magnolia leaves are also another wonderful source for creating tannins, to be able to boil these leaves and put it in your tank to make a black water tank. The one thing you have to be conscious of when you're doing this and picking up plants around here, the biggest thing we obviously work on is pesticides. If people are treating their property and spraying for bugs, those are, no matter how much you boil them, I'm not going to tell you, because the chances are the tree absorbed the pesticide. So even though the leaf's dead, and you boil it and think it may have had it on the surface, it's probably actually ingrained into the leaf at this point, and any of that tannin that's going to be leached out could potentially leach out pesticides as well. So, you know, we have a member here named Alex Cox. He's obviously in Russia right now, but he was experimenting with boiling leaves down, and he got to the point where he boiled them down. He boiled them for 3 hours, basically. The water would evaporate off, and then you just top it off and let it boil again and do that. Well, he added the tannin mixture to his tank, and it literally came out in a syrup so much that when one of the fish swam through it, one of the cardinals swam through it, and it literally died. Like, it swam through it and died. He's like, water change, like, immediately. But so you've got to...
Yeah, introduction, you have to be kind of relative. Don't... You're playing with some parameters here. Getting used to it, this will be a trial and error. If this is your first time killing that $80 fish, maybe try it with some neons first.
Well, the other thing to consider is they have those, I see them for planet tanks a lot for the CO2 thing, but they have it's like this glass orb that you fill with this liquid, and when you put it in your tank,
A
drop checker, there you go. It will give you, it's not 100% accurate, it's kind of like one of those stick-on glass thermometers. I'm sure if you sat there and rub your hand enough, you can alter the temperature of your tank. But it still gives you a generalization of where your tank is roughly sitting at, so you can know if you're having any issues. I will tell you this, 280-gallon black water tank, I don't really check my pH. I also don't recommend that you don't check your pH. Be on top of your stuff. But over the years, I have learned one of the best things you can study in your tank to know what they're doing are the fish themselves. Yeah, watch your fish as I'm doing water changes, because I will do water changes, and sometimes I'll add tannins, and sometimes I won't. It just kind of depends on, I'm watching the fish and seeing what they're doing. If they're happy, I don't see any infections, diseases, anything like that, I'm generally okay. But again, the more wild caught you go, the more finicky cured these fish get. So the swings that we see that we're able to do with tank-raised fish, you're not going to be able to get away with all the wild caught. So when you're adding tannins, you can take our water at 8 point whatever pH and add in a bunch of tannins and dump that into the tank, and now all of a sudden you've shocked the pH one direction or the other, and the fish they're not going to recover from it. It's going to be too harsh.
It'll shock them.
It'll shock them.
I use a rule of thumb with water changes, or just in general with aquariums, is that stability is the key.
Yes.
And even, like you said, with, in the wild, where they'll get a short stint of rain, well, in the Amazon it's a lot.
It's torrential.
It will affect the pH, but they're also used to stability, and they can change their environment. Some of them are locked in areas, but with water change, if you got a 10 or 20 gallon tank, doing a 5 to 10% water change once a week will have less fluctuation in your chemistry, and it's actually a lot simpler.
Yeah. I mean, even with 280,
especially when you got wild caught.
Well, yeah, I do. So I do with evap. I probably evap about that much in a 280 over a week period. So I do top offs every week, and then once every 3 weeks, I drain down about somewhere in the ballpark of 50 to 60% of my water, and then that's when I go ahead and add more tannins in and bring my water back up. Because one of the things that you've got to take into consideration is if your ammonia or nitrate levels are at a certain ppm, so let's say over a 2 week period, because you do water changes every 2 weeks, you're sitting at 20 ppm after 2 weeks of nitrates. Well, now you've cut it in half, so you're down to 10. but you're rising at a rate of 20. So the next 2 weeks, now you're going to be at 30.
Yeah,
you go down to 15, you start compounding up your parts per million, and you're not not testing your water because there's nothing wrong with the fish to test. And again, that comes with everybody. Always you see when people are having problems, the first thing that admins or anybody that's got advice or has dealt with this before is what are your water parameters? What are your parameters? What are your parameters? And
yeah, because you might have been going on this tank for a year, and you go, everything was fine until just last month.
And
well,
that's because
you finally stair-stepped
so
up.
breaking up this monotony of 20% water changes with something large is kind of
helpful. It's what's needed to drop
it's
it.
wiping the slate clean, essentially. And so this can, with tannins, this can make it, obviously, with the botanicals and the pH fluctuations, it makes things a little bit tricky.
Yes.
These are tanks that you almost have to take in consideration, like salt water.
Yeah.
You have to kind of do your maintenance like salt water. It's not your typical freshwater tank.
Yeah, this is not an easy tank by any means. These are, dedicated sort of tanks that,
Just to give you an idea, my filter, I have two 2262s on my 280 gallon. They have sponge filters in them and biome.
Yeah.
That's it, and polymer filter. I have no chemical filtration whatsoever at all, because obviously if you have carbon or purigen, then the tannins are ipso facto pointless.
a lot of people like tannins, like utilizing them. It's not always what you need. Brightwell actually makes a black water extract. Inherently, you just dose that in. It can kind of give them those minerals and kind of that feel of the black water, and it's a little bit more manageable than trying to, monkey around with seed pods and whatnot. Again, it's all up to you. This is something that shrimpers know about. This wonderful little aqua soil and aquarium soil. This is a pH reducing substrate. So as long as you don't have something that's really diggy, this will be wonderful. You can put this on, put some leaves on, and this will actually reduce your pH. Now, if you use it with RO, with some nice distilled water, it lasts a long time. But if you start using tap water, imagine that this is a bank. Every time you put in, it only has $100 worth. So every time you start using that tap, it eats up its ability to lower that pH. So if you just dose tap, it might last 3 months, and then it exhausts its ability. So using RO or distilled will actually extend that time period out. And it'll be more effective. Honestly, with we were using a Brightwell pH reducing, and I'm certain that we got down into the 5s. It can drop quick. Another, you can use peat, just normal, organic peat, but Eheim makes, they call it Dwarf. This is actually pelletized peat. Throw it in your filter. Now you don't have to look at it. It's awesome. Sierra makes a super peat. Basically the same thing. It's just like granulized peat. You can use it even underneath like a sand to actually help do it like that. You don't like it in your tank? This is a media reactor. Now, you're supposed to use these pellets, right? You can put aldricums in there. You can put crushed peat. You can put whatever you want in there. And then you've got a reactor, and you can set your rate with your pump. So you want it to go faster, you just set it up more. You want it to slow it down a little bit more, and it's basically getting the reactor, and then you're just pumping it back into the water. So it's another way to kind of introduce tannins into it. What's that?
Crushed leaves.
Yeah, crushed leaves. Let's this one right here. This is actually a dwarf giraffe catfish. Let's see. I think I pretty much covered the dwarf cichlids. Does anybody have any questions? Comments? All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. I want to be sure and thank all of our admin team for all the work that they do. I appreciate it. They make these meetings possible. Honestly, I want to thank Fish Gallery for having us. Thank you very much. You guys are hunting something, grab something. They really welcome us in. They love having us here. Let's make certain to thank them back again. They've got discounts today. Hey, we've got sponsors for a reason. We love our sponsors. Well, here, I'll let Jamie. Jamie's good.
I was trying to pass it on. If you look around, find something you like, go on Facebook, like the page, leave a nice review. Feel free to go on Yelp if you do Yelp, and just let them know what a great time you had, how helpful they were, and everything else. Every little bit like that helps our sponsor stores. When people are searching for somewhere to go, those little stars and likes really make a difference to them. They appreciate it. They're really generous to us, and we try to give back as much as we can.
Oh, no, I haven't. Yeah, go ahead.
You guys might notice we've got these wonderful T-shirts that are designed by Emo Scotch, and she's created them for us. We've got a few extras right now. We want to for the admins. Got a few extras. If you're interested, please PM one of the manager or one of the admins, or you can ask us here. But if later on you're viewing this and you're interested, just ask and see if we can get you one.
And we'll also be doing.
They are $20 each.
We're also putting together a. It'll be 5 or 6 different colors and styles. So that'll come up on the group, and then you can kind of customize and go, I want it extra small, and I want it in burgundy. So, we'll have a bunch of different colors and styles, and then you can
several options. But if you guys have any suggestions of colors that you would like to see, please let us know, and we can try to put those up.
I'm a female, and I want a girl's cut, and those will be available as well. So we'll have a lot of different options. Other than that, I want to thank everybody for coming. Hopefully you guys learned a lot.